Good evening from Manhattan Beach, California, guys. Hope you're all doing well. This is Revolutionary Change, pontificating with Pete on Saturday night. Hope you're all doing well. I am in a kind of like in a hotel lobby in an open air area. So you may be hearing some feedback noise throughout the course of the evening. I'm going to do my best to keep it as low as possible, and I will mute myself every time the clip is on. We've got a lot to cover this evening. But as you know, our channel is continuing to deal with a heavy bout of suppression, and you will see people walking back and forth behind me in the area that I'm sitting in. But if you haven't smashed that like button yet, please make sure that you do so. We want to get this out to as many people as we can. And the sooner you smash that button, the faster the algorithm will potentially catch some of what we're trying to do. So I hope you're all doing well. And certainly with everything that is going on right now with Jerusalem Day happening the other day, if you guys haven't had the opportunity to check out my latest Substack, I am at 3 weeks in a row now that I have kept my word that I would be doing one at least once a week. And this one obviously highlights what's been going on recently with the Netanyahu government suing because somebody at the New York Times finally decided to do some actual journalism and do an op-ed basically detailing all of the crimes against humanity that the state of Israel has been responsible for, to say the least. And the response to it has been extremely swift. Substack.com/@revolutionary change if you want to go check out the writing. Also did a YouTube post as well in conjunction with that. But as I mentioned, there will be a number of stories where we will cover this evening, including Thomas Massie's home stretch of his campaign. Election is on Tuesday. Lots of stuff happening there right now. There's also a gentleman by the name of Rabb, who is running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 3rd District. He is backed by Bernie and AOC, and he is basically having to deal with the neoliberal faction of the Democratic Party led by Cory Booker and Josh Shapiro, coming after him with all they've got to try to keep at least what could potentially be a halfway decent congressman from the left out of there. What a surprise. But of course, as we know, electoral politics is far and few between in terms of its level of importance. It matters, but it's not ultimately what's going to dictate what we have to deal with on a regular basis. But if there is a place that I do want to start this evening that I think is important, you guys know I don't cover Bill Maher very often, but if there is a person who truly encapsulates what shit liberty is all about, a person who, quite frankly, on the one hand is disconnected from reality, is turning into a grumpy old man, and is probably compromised by the state of Israel for many reasons, he decided to go on a multitude of rants defending the state of Israel. And this one in particular was an exceptional winner, to say the least. I don't believe, Colin, you have that one up yet, but if you could, I really want to get that one going. And here's a guy who, again, if the word smug had an image in the dictionary, he would have it, because that's who Bill Maher is. And so I cannot say enough about how much I don't like this guy, but he's got a few different things to say. So we're going to start with a shortened version and a little bit of a longer version. So here we go.
Hatred isn't just acceptable now, it's cool. Celebrities love it and make it trendy. It's the new Che Guevara t-shirt. The Islamophobia is just as bad argument?
I am going to start with the longer version because I believe this was a shortened version of what the actual statement was. So he did his New Rules segment completely devoted to cucking himself for Israel. And so now you're going to see exactly what happens when they are running out of places to go to defend this genocidal state. So here we are.
And finally, new rules since yesterday was Israel's birthday. Having become a nation on May 14th, 78 years ago, everyone must either wish her a happy birthday or admit they're anti-Semitic. Now, it's everyone's right in a free country to be anti-Semitic, but enough with hiding behind Israel or Zionism or Netanyahu. If you think, as so many do now, that when it comes to human rights, Israel is the monster country of all time, you either don't read or you don't care about your own hypocrisy. Because there are so many worse places. But that's where we are these days. No Jews, no news. Haha. But China, Russia, The Sudan, Iran, Myanmar, Haiti, the Congo, North Korea, all way worse. And that's how you know it's anti-Semitism.
Here's what I know. He's wrong. There's plenty of worse places. No. Israel, especially if you're Palestinian, is as bad a place on earth as you could possibly be today. Now, I was actually at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library earlier this afternoon. And of all the things that he quoted, which I actually can appreciate, which he's right about, is that we can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. And in the case of the state of Israel and why this is such a big problem, unlike these other countries, none of them has the systemic control over our daily lives from a domestic and foreign perspective like the state of Israel does. And this is the thing that either Bill is deliberately not getting, or it is incumbent upon us to make sure that everybody else who hears it does get it. We can't stop every genocidal crime that is happening in the world. We know that bad things are happening on a regular basis in many places. He's not wrong about violence in Sudan or Kenya or Syria or Lebanon or even in China and Russia. Even though Israel has a lot to do with a lot of those places, including Iran. But his deliberate misinterpretation of the problem, to me, like so many others, is from where I stand. He is purposely obfuscating from the truth. He's also doing it in a very smug way because he can't help himself. But we'll continue.
It's the inconsistency. People talk about Jews these days like something out of Stormfront, except it's not Stormfront. It's an editor from the American Prospect, which is a venerable liberal publication that launched the careers of journalists like Ezra Klein. And yet no one blinks when one of their editors says, Israel is a brainwashed, psychopathic death cult that might need to be nuked to save the human race.
Shout out to friend of the show, Mo Texac, for that little doozy. Suck it, Bill.
People say the left and the right can't agree on anything these days. Well, there is this one thing they agree on. Right-winger Tucker Carlson has Nick Fuentes and Holocaust deniers on his podcast and wonders along with them who really was the bad guy in World War II. And the New York Times has on their podcast super leftist Hassan Piker, who they call a progressive mind, and who says Zionists should be treated the same as Nazis, which I assume means hung at Nuremberg. That's what progressive is now? I guess so. The kids are sure into it. They went nuts last year at Coachella for Kneecap. That's the name of an Irish rap group, as if Ireland hasn't suffered enough. Their stage set is a sign that says, fuck Israel. And then they send a beach ball around the crowd. Again, ha-ha. Because again...
See, even Bill can't convince his own liberal-minded crowd to just seal clap along with every little quip he throws at you. I think you've lost your edge, Billy.
And Israel is the only country in the world doing anything bad. I see why the meathead manosphere and the Code Pink people are on the same page, because they both went to high school in America and they don't know anything. So we really could someday soon have the tiki torch Jews will not replace us crowd and the Queers for Palestine people working together to elect the next Hitler. There's a North Carolina teenager who's been charged with plotting to drive through a synagogue to fulfill her life goal of killing as many Jews as possible, because a kid's got to have a dream. I'm just asking, why in the world would this be the dream of some kid in North Carolina? Why is it the dream of Dan Bilzerian, who's running as a Republican to win a House seat in Florida? Who's Dan Bilzerian? Well, he's a professional douchebag who's attracted 30 million followers by doing this all day and posting it. Yes, he'll fit in fine with the current Congress.
Now, as somebody who has pointed this out on the channel before, and I'll point it out again, this is why I've addressed the issue with Balzerian head on as he attempts to run for Congress. This type of stuff, this type of debaucherous behavior on his part in a very conservative district like the one he's attempting to become a congressman in, this will come to the forefront. This will become an issue. There is no way it won't. I am not trying to give Maher any credit here, but I am simply saying that if you think you're going to become a congressman, even against somebody as inhumane and despicable as Randy Fine, just keep in mind that this is just the beginning, and all of that is going to run wild throughout the Congressional District 6 in Florida. Just wanted to point that out.
Yes, he'll fit in fine with the current Congress. And Dan is fairly typical of the guys in the manosphere when he says, the only real battle in the world today that I see worth fighting is fucking, exterminating Israel. I mean, I would sign up tomorrow to go fucking put boots on the ground and go fucking kill Israelis. Why? Why is this asshole's life about two things? Getting more Viagra and exterminating the Jews. Israel was founded on the idea that anti-Semitism made a Jewish state necessary because Jews would never be safe without one.
So the solution was to have an actual Holocaust of the Palestinian people because, fair is fair. The sheer denial, just as it was over 100 years ago, the movement towards the state of Israel, claiming that it was for a land, for people without a land. And Bill will continue to repeat the Hasbro until he's blue in the face.
Can you honestly listen to this rhetoric and not see why that turned out to be true? If you don't have the right-wingers on your side, and you don't have the progressives, what do you have? What's more progressive than college, where professors now say things that would make Kanye wince? Osman Omgarji calls Zionists bloodthirsty animals. Who's he, the leader of ISIS? No, he's a professor right here in California at UC Irvine. And Candace Owens agrees with his assessment of Jews as animals because she says wherever they go, they bring their filth with them. Another professor, Hamid Dabashi, says of Israel's, they have a vulgarity of character that is bone deep and structural to the skeletal vertebrae of its culture.
Which is why in the next segment, you're going to see exactly why that is the case, despite what Billy Boy here has to say. But it is true.
These are the kind of statements Goebbels would have read and said, no notes. I mean, where are the Jewish space lasers when you need them? Now, there are absolutely horrible things said about Muslims, too. That should also be, of course, roundly condemned, like Republican Congressman Randy Fine saying, if they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. That's awful. But it's not the same as they need to be nuked, and let's exterminate them.
Randy Fine makes commentary about exterminating Muslims all the time, and you know that. But the reason you don't say anything is because you're as anti-Muslim as he is. We all know that. Don't we, Bill?
Horrible thing, awful. But it's not the same as they need to be nuked, and let's exterminate them. This is why Jewish people here and in Europe now say they sometimes hide their identity, afraid that the Star of David will get them attacked, as has happened in almost too many places to mention lately. Leave your Star of David at home, but the keffiyeh, you can wear that anywhere. You can wear it to Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay. We all know he's Ivy League educated. the kafaya, there is no way that he is saying that with a straight face. He knows exactly that it's pronounced kafia. He just chooses not to. Again, there's a reason why people mispronounce certain names. It's done on purpose, because dehumanization is the fastest way to get people not to respond or to acknowledge that what's happening is evil. So this is him in real time pretending like, oh, the kafaya? What's that stupid thing they wear around themselves anyway, right? That's the whole point.
You'll get applause. Jew hatred isn't just acceptable now, it's cool. Celebrities love it and make it trendy. It's the new Che Guevara t-shirt. The Islamophobia is just as bad argument is simply a false equivalency. Can you name a Jewish professor who talks about Muslims the way they get talked about? No. Anti-Jewish crimes, hate crimes, now outpace anti-Muslim hate crimes 9-1. It's not a contest, and I'm certainly not saying do more of the other. I'm just saying these are the numbers.
From the ADL, because they would never lie.
Facts, the reality. There is a frothing anxiousness for the literal extermination of this one group. And Democrats, where are you? If any other minority group was being talked about this way, you'd break out the kente cloth and have 10 benefit concerts. But because you see that so many of your brainwashed by TikTok constituents now have an unfavorable view of Israel, you indulge them when you should be correcting them. You don't tell your woke idiots Israel isn't a colonizer or an apartheid state or committing genocide, and that if you brats had to spend a week anywhere in the Middle East other than Israel, you would understand what liberalism is not. All the people likely running for president now on the Democratic side want it known they don't take money from AIPAC, the Israeli lobby, a stance which gives permission to actual anti-Semites to say, see, we're right about Israel. That's a dirty money from a dirty country. Oh, please. You take money from crypto and factory farmers and big tech, from Diddy and Weinstein and Epstein, but AIPAC is too far?
Fact of the matter is, and we have pointed this out time and again, this isn't about AIPAC. This is about the Israel lobby. And we're going to get into that in a minute. Just because one entity is gone doesn't mean another one does not pop up. But what is Bill exactly doing here? Is he trying to defend the Democratic Party? Because we're not doing that, not even a little bit. So I don't even understand the point of this whole rant. It's almost as if you're suggesting that the Democrats have one over on the Republicans when it comes to the support of the state of Israel. There isn't. Now, you could say that there's more people who vote Democrat than vote Republican that are against Israel. That you could say. But to suggest that the power structure of either of the two parties is any different, they're not. They're the same. Clear as day. And again, Billy knows this.
Let me just say this to all who ask me, why are you harder on the Democrats than you used to be? Until you fix this whole issue, stop asking me.
Mind you, as I said again, I am in a place where there's a lot of background noise, so I'm trying to be cognizant of that for everybody who's listening. So Bill Maher is definitely somebody who likes the smell of his own farts. We know that. But he's also somebody who, because of his level of comfort within the world, he doesn't actually care whether anything significant happens to everyday people in this country as a result of us being dragged to the seventh circle of hell as a result of our support for the state of Israel. And that's something that is not going to stop. That is the difference between somebody who actually has something to gain by trying to make it in this world versus somebody who's already made it 10 times over. Bill Maher's worth at least $100 million, maybe more. And he's also somebody who is very content, to be within that enclave that is that system that is protecting people like him, who probably has a lot of skeletons in his closet that people are not fully aware of at this point. But it is incumbent upon us to, again, inform the populace in a way that he won't. And that is the danger with people going along with what he has to say. Now, with that being said, as we continue this sort of trend into liberal politics, I want people to understand that When it comes to somebody like Jennifer Welch, I don't hold ill will towards somebody who ultimately is trying to change who they are or who they were in terms of being a neoliberal supporter of the Democratic establishment, as she has been for a very long time, but that the state of Israel has woken her, the genocidal state of Israel has woken her up to the realities of the world and is trying to change the party that she has a supposedly prominent voice in terms of making that change. But I want you to listen very carefully to how they use their language, because this, again, is the inherent danger, giving the power to the Democrats and not forming a path forward that doesn't involve one of the two major parties, or at least creating that leverage where they don't have all the power. The language of it's all AIPAC is very, very dangerous. And here's why.
It feels like you've almost woken up to a new reality of what the traditional Democratic Party establishment is. I mean, you kind of see the machinations of it with a lot of the guests that you had on the pod. Mm-hmm. They thought they were going to get a fastball interview. You clearly didn't. You chopped them up. You went to Benihana.
Yeah.
And you did what you did.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here, Jennifer?
Much to my surprise, a lot of my friends, my longtime girlfriends in Oklahoma that I would say are moderates,
yeah,
they are like full blown going left now.
If that is the case, and if they are supposedly moving to the left, what type of left? Are they moving to the left on economic issues or just on social issues? Because that was all too often is the case when it comes to the issue of economics, when it comes to left populist economics, single-payer healthcare, tuition-free public college and trade schools, some form of a Green New Deal, a mass high-speed rail system, nuclear power, as I'm a big advocate for. There's a litany of different areas from an economic standpoint that we don't hear necessarily being touted. Now, getting away from the state of Israel is obviously very important, but the support mechanism that is in place to basically say, we're going to stop one door from opening, but we're going to allow the other ones to open instead, there is the inherent danger. So listen closely to what she says now.
Nobody
knew. Are you serious?
Nobody knew what AIPAC was a year ago. Nobody gave a fuck. And now these women that I know are like, I will not vote for a candidate that takes AIPAC money.
And that's all well and good, and I can appreciate that. However, if we're going to be very specific about this problem, which we always are, it is not a question of whether or not you do not take AIPAC money. And that's great that you don't. But how many different Israel lobbies are out there? How many different ways can you wash money that comes from the Israel lobby through, let's say, law firms? This type of behavior is all too common, and it is all too easy to get through what you want. So as a result, herein lies the rub. You could be taking money from Kufi, you could be taking money from the ADL, you could be taking money from, there's Friends of Israel PACs. There is not just AIPAC. They are a big problem. J Street. J Street is the new AIPAC. They're not going to say anything about that, though, because J Street is considered the liberal lobbying group for Israel, which is acceptable. When they start saying, no, we can't take any money from any Israel lobby, which includes J Street, then you'll know they're serious. Until then, this is, without question, a sleight of hand. That's all it is. They're just showing you one hand, they're giving you something else. That's why you have to be really clear what you're actually saying, and listen carefully when they say it. AIPAC is evil, and they are one small piece of a much greater pie that is the Israel lobby. So if she's not saying, and if the rest of them are not saying, the Israel lobby is wrong, then you know that they're only going to go up to a certain line before they stop.
And the base has moved in such a way, and of course, this is anecdotal, what I'm telling you right now.
Right.
But I believe the base has moved in such a way that the Democratic establishment is still in denial. They are in denial, bargaining. They're in the 5 stages of grief of this party
Sure.
right now.
Yeah.
I would say that they can say that that's how they feel, but right now we know that it doesn't matter until they actually cross the Rubicon, which is the next electoral cycle, and then you'll find out where people really stand, which is why, as I mentioned, you do have this pretty big election. Again, I'm very selective in terms of races that I would say actually have any true value. But I would, really take a moment to understand why you don't really have that many good people that are out there when it comes to these elections. And that's why when it comes to the Republican Party, obviously, Thomas Massie is the one person that I do hold a considerable amount of support for. And then when it comes to the Democratic Party, I do want to give credit where credit is due to somebody like Chris Rabb, who I do believe is talking the talk and walking the walk. And their elections are both on Tuesday. So we're going to find out very quickly exactly where these guys stand. Because in the end, the system is going to fight tooth and nail to protect itself, even at the expense of us in support of the state of Israel, because, as I've mentioned in my Substack, this, more than anything else, is all about economics. The state of Israel was not considered they consider themselves protected class. We've been hearing the Israelis throw that line out there quite a bit as of late. Keep in mind that this is essentially what the whole state, what their ideology represents, a protected class. They could be evil, they could be narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic, and murderous, genocidally murderous. That doesn't matter, because their interconnectivity within the global financial system, they are as knee-deep in it as anybody. And so that's why everybody overlooks it. And when those that want to get in are speaking a different language, they're singing another tune, the machine throws their hands up in the air and says, oh no, we've got to get rid of this. We have to stop it. Colin, I need that other clip, and you can pull the other Bill Maher clip. So you can throw those two, pull the one. I want you guys to hear Chris Rabb. We haven't talked with David Sirota in a long time, and I hope he's doing well. But I want to be very clear that if you want to hear somebody who is speaking a different tune, especially with the Democratic Party establishment, and again, we don't hear it too often. Not too many of them are really willing to go where somebody like Chris Rabb is ultimately willing to go. Now, that is in part and parcel why Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, along with Senator Booker in New Jersey, are backing up some guy. I think his name is Sharif Street. I believe that's one of the opponents that Chris Rabb is facing in the primary that's coming up on Tuesday. But this is very, very important, because I don't know if he'll have the opportunity to make some type of a significant difference, but he is trying. And that's a lot more than you could say for most people that are out there. Now, do I put too much stock into the fact that he has the support of Bernie and AOC? No, because I know that they still have the power to rally a certain portion of the voting base, whether we agree with them or not, especially when it comes to AOC. Now, they may just be doing it for the purpose of fortifying their positions for the upcoming election. And so in that respect, I get it. It's not without its merit. As I said, guys, if you have not hit that like button yet, I cannot emphasize this enough. We are a heavily suppressed channel, and half of you watching have not hit the like button. It is tremendously appreciated if you can do this. So please do it. We thank you for your service. Here's Chris Rabb with David Sirota.
That Barack Obama is a good man. I think he did many good things, but we were complicit in the corporate duopoly where when the Democratic president is in office, they listen to the Democrats at Goldman Sachs. When it's a Republican in office, they listen to the Republicans at Goldman Sachs. The problem is Goldman Sachs and the Wall Streetification of our economy and our political economy. And it's because of that connection that they got to pass. If we had publicly financed campaigns, there'd be a bunch of people in federal prison. But those folks cut checks. You got to follow the money. And also there's this very naive kind of belief around governance that like we got to bury the hatchet and all come together and not look backwards. No, we need to punish the people who are responsible for the largest theft of American financial wealth, household wealth in modern history, or perhaps ever. It is unacceptable if we can lock up children and put them in cages for life without the chance of parole in Pennsylvania, which was just ruled unconstitutional just a matter of weeks ago in Pennsylvania, you better believe we should be locking up folks. And I'm a decarceration person. I will make exception for the evil of those folks who have done an atrocity, an economic and emotional atrocity to our nation and to millions of households that will never come back from that. And if we don't use our authority and have moral clarity around going after them, we don't deserve to lead and to govern.
I want to be very clear that I do think that Rabb is probably a decent guy from everything that I'm hearing. But if you come out and you say that Obama was a good guy, that he was a good man, you could say Obama's a good man on a personal level because you're chummy with him and you think he's a good guy in that respect. But there is really nothing good about what he did as president. If you really look back on it now, especially with what he could have done within the first 100 days and how he could have given us at a bare minimum the public option and instead gave us a Wall Street presidency, the likes of which had probably never been seen before. That's his legacy. And that's not even touching foreign policy, which was probably worse. So if you feel that the only way you can get elected into federal office within the Democratic Party is by kissing Obama's ring, how are you any better than anybody who thinks the only way you could get elected into Republican federal office is by kissing Trump's ring? Where's the difference? I don't see it. At least they're not kissing Biden's ring, am I right? But this idea that you have to kiss Obama's ring, Obama's been out of office for a decade. And yet they still feel that, have to pay homage. Can't have everybody supporting me within the Democratic Party, which also goes to show you how much the party's dying. The party is really dying if they feel that they still have to pay homage to Obama, full stop. And somebody like Chris Rabb really shouldn't have to do that at all. So it's a very bad look as far as I'm concerned. Other than that, I would say his language is pretty sharp as far as what needs to happen within the Democratic Party.
So I'm gonna speak the truth because my allegiance is not to party, it's to the many, not the moneyed.
This is why, if you're trying to rally people in support of the party in any way, shape, or form, you are not going to get it by having language like this. Doesn't work. You need to inspire people to say, you know what, I think change is possible, and I'm going to follow somebody who's willing to say and do what needs to be done. If you're not, well, you're seeing it right now in real time. What is somebody really willing to do to make that systemic change? Chris Rabb is going to be the best option in that particular district as far as what you would want to see out of a left populist politician. But again, he's only one person, and he's not making any systemic change. If you are going to vote on Tuesday, I would say voting for Chris Rabb is the right move, and I think he will provide some sustenance. However, that is not the biggest election that is coming up on Tuesday. The biggest election coming up is for Thomas Massie in Congressional District 4 in the state of Kentucky. And I want to be very clear that when it comes to this guy, Ed Gallrein, he is pretty bad. And I'm sure you're all aware that there was attempted expose thrown at Massie earlier this week, suggesting that he had not only an inappropriate relationship with somebody I think he used to work with, but apparently provided hush money. And now it's looking like this entire story is falling apart. And all the while, what you have here is a desperate attempt by the machine to try to stop this man from being reelected. It's already the most expensive primary in history. You thought the Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush primaries were expensive. This is on a whole other level now. And yet, Massie is a slight favorite to hold on to his seat. When you take the chance to stand up against corporate power in a way that very few people ever choose to do, you got to tip your hat. And that's why I am hopeful that he will hold on Tuesday. But that being said, I want you to hear what Ed Gallrein has to say when he was confronted in a town hall, despite the fact that He has been summoned for a debate with Massie 8 times in the past 2-3 months. He's soundly rejected them all, although I would say that he's been given advice not to get involved. So here he is.
Took the press out of the middle and talk right to the people. What did President Trump do? What did Gallrein do? I'm going to talk right to you. I ain't scared of nothing. You think I lack for courage? In fact, they had to hog tie me from taking that bull on. So there ain't no money in it. The New York Times is going to show up, and all they're going to print is, if you like your doctor, you can keep him. Whatever they say, they're going to call it the gospel. And you ain't going to hear another word about it. So as you might guess, I'm not shy about courage about nothing. In terms of that.
But you haven't debated him.
I'm debating him right now.
No, you're not.
I'm glad
You're not debating him. You're giving a bunch of platitudes. You're not explaining anything. You've not gone toe-to-toe with the congressman. You're not explaining your differences. You're not doing anything. You're not explaining any differences.
I just laid it all out, young man.
It made no sense. It made no sense.
I want to be very clear about the young man who is questioning Gallrein in this video. He is a conservative podcaster. He is not some left-wing person who just hopped in there to try to garner attention. No, he's saying, listen, I live in this district. I am, and clearly he supports Massie, and right, that's perfectly fine. I'm sure there are people that are in that town hall that do support Massie or have supported him, maybe considering Gallrein as an option, but they also want to hear what he has to say, since it is being suggested that numbers-wise, he is very competitive in this race, albeit because he has all of this corporate PAC and Israel lobby money coming in to say, to provide him with an infrastructure to win a congressional seat, because he's a wet blanket if there ever was. The thing I find the most disturbing is the fact that this guy apparently had some type of what we would call a decorated military career. And it looks like there were some gaps in his story, to say the least. But let's finish this out, and then we'll get to that point.
Yeah.
Why don't we
a civil conversation is the congressman and him debating, not him pulling up signs and a Letterman's jacket.
You asked a question, he answered it.
That's not an answer.
There was nothing surprising about that conduct, and Gallrein obviously does not and should not be a congressman, but this is the Donald getting really upset with Mr. Massie because he got in my way. Well, here's this. From Libertarians for Massie. Now we know exactly why Ed Gallrein has dodged 8 debates and hides from Kentucky voters. His entire campaign bio is a cover-up. Gallrein's central campaign claim is that he served 30 years as an active duty Navy SEAL from 84 to 2014. The receipts have dropped. Official 2011 Navy docs and his own circulated bio show he actually retired in August of 2011. So what was he actually doing from 2011 to 2014? He worked as a civilian contractor to the Department of Gemtech, the DOE Gemtech, where he was abruptly fired in 2013. He filed a whistleblower complaint over the firing, and the government dismissed it. He was working for an NGO in Bangladesh. Right before running for Congress, Gallrein scrubbed the civilian firing and the Bangladesh NGO from his LinkedIn. He then padded his active duty Navy timeline by 3 years to cover the gap. He didn't just embellish. He used the uniform to hide a civilian termination from the voters of Kentucky Florida. Excuse me. This is why DC super PACs have spent $10 million to keep him in the witness protection program. If he gets on the debate stage, he knows he'll be exposed. Thomas Massie is running against a complete fraud. And I agree, he is. And so having the ability to speak that truth to power is not an easy thing to do. Massie is a prime example of somebody who has taken to great risk to, frankly, his safety and for the betterment of the nation. He's going deep. And I also have to say if there's anybody who deserves to stay in Congress, it's Thomas Massie. One of the last things he decided to do before he goes home for the weekend, for the home stretch of the election, he decided to once again issue or bring to the floor of Congress a bill called the AIPAC Act, which is to register the Israel lobby as a foreign agent. Not just AIPAC, but issue that the state of Israel and its lobby be registered as a foreign agent. Now that's power. And like I said, of all the people that I could have met when I was on Capitol Hill, I met the one guy I wanted to meet. And he turned out to be what I hoped he would be. He was a pretty swell gentleman. And there's really not a lot to be ecstatic for, if ever, when it comes to our federally elected representatives. But Massie is a dying breed. I don't want to say he's our last hope, but he is somebody that represents a way of legislating that is basically dead. The hyperpartisanship, he breaks through that. He's crossed party lines on a multitude of occasions, but he also sticks to his principles. Not everybody agrees with libertarian austerity economics. Just had Steve Grumbine on. I know he doesn't think highly of him in that regard, but when it comes to our civil liberties and when it comes to our foreign policy, there is no one better. I mean, he simply is the best there is. And he really does deserve to stay there. He had a parting statement before he headed home for the weekend.
Exactly. Let's do it. Okay, I'm walking to an airplane to rejoin the most expensive congressional race in U.S. history.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it's a referendum, really. Unfortunately, it's turned into whether Israel gets to buy seats in Congress. And what they found out is that my seat's really expensive. They've probably, when this is over, will have spent $20 million and come up short.
So why is Israel the only country that gets to buy elections in the United States? Or does any other country get to? Is this
you know, I've never seen Great Britain or Australia or even Germany play in our elections here in the United States, but Israel gets so much from the United States. It's a one-sided relationship. They get us to be their proxies in wars that they want against their enemies. They get our military assistance, they get our technology, they get our bombs, they get our tax dollars. And I think it's a very one-sided relationship. At least with NATO, we pretend that they would come to our aid someday if we needed it. And even that's a ruse.
Yeah. So
Massie is sassy and he's classy. And he's undeterred. And in many ways, it should be inspiring. What I fear is that even if he does make it, is it really going to send the smoke signal for systemic change amongst the ranks? I think they see him as a heretic. I think a lot of people on the Hill really don't have courage. That's the danger. I know there's this theory that a lot of people are kind of hanging around, waiting to see what happens. And if Massie succeeds, that they're all of a sudden are going to change their tune as well. I'm not convinced that that is the case. And that is very true. His polls are exceptionally strong for everyone under the age of 55. For those over the age of 55, and especially those over the age of 65, they are supporting Gallrein. And I would say some of the primary motivators to do so is because, you know, Captain Trump, King Trump is telling them that you totally have to support Gallrein, and they just listen. And we've seen, you know, our friends over at More Perfect Union have been on the ground covering what's going on in Kentucky's 4th District. And what we saw is that the people that are supporting Gallrein, they're supporting him because Trump told them to. Like, well, President Trump says we should support him, so I'm going to support him. And of course, the guys look exactly as you would expect them to look. And therein, again, is one of the reasons why people constantly say that, well, it's all about the boomers, and until they're gone, you know, we don't really have any opportunity to make systemic change in this country. In some respects, that is true. But it is also incumbent upon those that are not under, or, you know, whatever age they may be. As long as you're the age of 18, especially through 29 and even 35, the numbers are there. You can make the change. But I also think it is imperative that you have somebody that inspires you. Thomas Massie inspires me. And I am confident, cautiously confident, that he's going to hang on to his seat. If anybody should, it's him. And so, what are the dangers? What are the dangers if you speak out against the Zionist state? Well, they're very real. And no more has that become more crystal clear than in what just happened with the New York Times op-ed writer Nicholas Kristof writing about the systemic rape and violence of prisoners, mostly civilians. In fact, I would imagine pretty much all of them are. And just the outright crimes against humanity that the state of Israel commits on a regular basis. And by doing so, there is this complete denial of reality that those that support the Zionist state are enacting on a regular basis. Colin, Netanyahu made this statement. And so he said, and I quote, "Today I instructed my legal advisors to consider the harshest legal action against the New York Times and Nicholas Kristof. They defamed the soldiers of Israel and perpetuated a blood libel," again, blood libel, "about rape, trying to create a false symmetry between the genocidal terrorists of Hamas and Israel's valiant soldiers. Under my leadership, Israel will not be silent. We will fight these lies in the court of public opinion and in the court of law. Truth will prevail." Now, again, who is Netanyahu Milikowski to attempt to do anything in our country when it comes to this problem? Because, again, this is the United States of America. This is not Israel. We have laws here protecting free speech. And, of course, you would think anybody who's going to make a statement like that would have their language defended. But here's the problem. This is why we say people that support Israel are really Israel first. This is outside the New York Times yesterday afternoon. As you can see, the truth doesn't matter. Frankly, they don't want to know the truth. Guys, if you haven't smashed that like button yet, please make sure you do so. As you can see, every live stream, we continue to get heavily suppressed. We should be at over 600 live stream viewers now. We're stuck in the low 400s. So anything you could do to help to try to hit that algorithm would be tremendously appreciated. And as you can see, if you look in closely, it says "End Jew Hatred." Now, the only reason anybody would put that up there is because there is no distinction. There is no difference. Judaism and Zionism in their mind is the same thing. And that is why we have to continue fighting on this front line of making sure that people understand that this ideology is genocidal, not just to the Palestinians, but for the entire world. We show you constantly the beyond inappropriate behavior of the average Zionist. Mind-numbingly scary how insane they are and how they treat people. And we're going to get to Jerusalem Day very shortly. But this is exactly where the problem lies. They don't want to know about the crimes that the Zios are committing because they don't see Palestinians or frankly anybody else as the same as them in terms of humanity. They see them as subhuman, so they can be eliminated for their peace of mind and safety. That's why they're doing this, because they know if the New York Times is starting to cover this type of behavior, who in the fuck else are they going to turn to? They really don't have anybody. They're really driving themselves into a corner. The New York Times is the most pro-war publication national publication, corporate special interest publication in the country, and they allowed somebody to get this story through. That's why this is such a big deal. Notice anything unique about these individuals who are standing there and protesting? They all look like they're from the North Shore of Long Island, and they're all Ashkenazi. There is no one there that looks any different. And so now I want to draw your attention. And listen, hats off. I mean, really, truly, hats off to Nicholas Kristof, who stood up to write this. And Colin, I believe I sent you something on Nicholas. I wanted to read his, and then I want to obviously read the op-ed that I put together. So we've got two things that I want to highlight here. And let's see. Okay. So let me pull this one out first, and then put this up there. So Nicholas Kristof put in a response because I think he felt he had to, probably because there's been a lot of violence directed at him for even attempting to go down this road and saying what needed to be said. This is also in large part why there has been an exceptional amount of pushback, including reports coming out of CBS News, which of course is controlled by the Ellisons. This report now that I think a lot of you have probably been seeing that, oh, by the way, you know all those stories we told you about what actually happened, what really happened on October 7th? Yeah, they're all true. Yeah, all this stuff that Kristof says, yeah, it's all a lie. But what we said about October 7th, yeah, that's all true. So here's what Nicholas Kristof had to say. This was a hard article to write, and it's a hard article to read, but I hope you'll do so. I've been reporting in the West Bank on rape and other sexual violence of Palestinian male and female prisoners by Israel's authorities, and I find that it's widespread. As one Israeli lawyer told me, the authorities grant permission to rape. Permission to rape. Israeli authorities deny that. The article is now published. The assault victims were warned not to give or speak of what they endured. They were sometimes told they would be killed or raped again if they gave interviews, but they reluctantly did so. I'm very grateful to them for their courage. One man described being raped 3 times in a single day in Israeli prison. The third time after he tried to protest, a young woman said the guards would come in at the beginning of each shift and strip her naked and abuse her. Another reported that she was shown photos of herself being raped and warned they would be released unless she cooperated with Israeli intelligence. Look, whatever our position on the Middle East, we should be able to agree on being anti-rape. Sexual assaults were horrific when Israeli women were targeted on October 7th. Again, parsing the language, being very diplomatic about it. And they're equally horrific when Israeli authorities use them against Palestinians day after day after day. We should be able to find common ground in opposing rape. No, we have seen clip after clip after clip of IDF soldiers, former IDF soldiers, Israeli diplomats, supporters of the state of Israel, all universally saying rape is acceptable. It's war. We can do what war, it's acceptable behavior because they're subhuman. We're dealing with subhuman people, even though the Israelis are the real subhuman people. But this is what they're allowed to do. And so it is in defense of that. And the only reason why Kristof is out here making this statement in defense of his journalism, why do you think? Can you even imagine how many death threats this guy has gotten over the last 24 to 48 hours? How people have been telling him, we're coming for you, and we're going to put your head on a spigot. I guarantee you he's been dealing with it nonstop. He probably has to have security detailed just for writing this. Well, Colin, if you would, please pull up what I wrote earlier today. This is what I wrote in response and why we have to keep perspective on this. Very important. I don't know where you're starting it from. Can you go to the top? Okay, thank you. Netanyahu sues New York Times over truth. That is not the, okay. That is not the top of the story, Colin. I don't know why you're saying, but if one reason stands above all others, there is another line that was above that, and I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Anyway, let me, yeah. I don't know if it, yeah. What I said, and again, I don't know why it's not there, but what I did say is that there are many reasons why the state of Israel is allowed to act with impunity against our country, why they are allowed to conduct business in the capacity that they are able to do it in. And I am sending the line to you now, Colin, because I know I sent it, so I want you to have it. There are many reasons why Israel and its relentless lobby of Zionist minions have been able to wreak havoc with almost complete impunity over our country for multiple generations. But if one reason stands above all others, it is the power of the purse. The threat of financial ruin has been Israel's most effective fail-safe. Colin? Has been the most effective fail-safe weapon, keeping many prominent voices in line despite a globally televised genocide of the Palestinians that is almost assuredly morphing into a genocide of West Asia for the Greater Israel Project. So when Prime Minister Netanyahu declares that Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times will be sued for blood libel after his most recent op-ed, it is yet another warning shot to any individual who dares to speak out against the Zionist state, much less expose its crimes against humanity. In this case, Kristof's op-ed exposed the systemic rape committed by the IDF against prisoners. The reaction from Israel and its lobby has been swift and brutal. Not only has Kristof's op-ed been condemned as blasphemous and dishonest by the Israel lobby, but now we are seeing the fabricated Hamas rape stories from October 7th, 2023 resurface widely as a countermeasure. All this suggests is that Kristof's expose is completely valid, and Israel's craven nature exemplifies its demonstrable guilt. I've personally paid the price economically, socially, and politically for speaking out against the Zionist state since day one. I lost my job and several clients. The police harassed me, and voicing my convictions severely severed friendships and familial relationships forever. And in the end, I would do it all over again because it was the right thing to do. I have no doubt that Kristof felt the same way, despite the avalanche of legal and financial trouble certainly coming his way. For those individuals facing a similar predicament about speaking up, the signs strongly suggest major cracks in the Israeli army. While nothing is assured and censorship levels are reaching a fever pitch, these are moves of a desperate ideology. Freedom of speech was in many ways the foundation of our nation, featured prominently in Jefferson's Declaration as well as Madison's Constitution. We have allowed a foreign nation and its billionaire Zionist cohorts to circumvent, if not outright disregard, the sanctity of what we hold most sacred. Without our ability to speak our minds, whether as individuals, through the press, or via the separation of church or synagogue and state, especially in the face of tyranny, we cease to be a republic that holds any form of freedom. As Franklin once said, it may be our last chance to keep it. Since we now know we only have the illusion of a constitutional republic, it is time to start working collectively as a United States of America against those very forces of tyranny before it's too late. And if you want to check that out, I wrote this earlier today for our Substack. And this, in many ways, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence of the very problem that we're dealing with here when it comes to this state. And in so many ways, I give a tip of the hat to somebody like Netanyahu because they throw it right at you. It becomes way too obvious on a regular basis that they really are not nuanced in their strategy. They make it too obvious what they're trying to accomplish. Disintegration of what we hold sacred in our country. Our constitutional rights have been eroded and then some, all at the behest of those within our corporate infrastructure in conjunction with the Zio state. And that is why we have to talk about this on a regular basis. Whether at home or abroad, the problem becomes more and more profound. And I want to give, as I said, a lot of credit to Kristof, because we can see that even slightly getting out of line becomes great risk for anybody, financially, socially, politically. There is great risk involved. And that is one of the primary reasons why people don't speak up. It isn't because they don't necessarily have the same feelings that we do about all that's been going on. I think in many respects they do have those same feelings. But what we know with absolute certainty is that the smoke signals are still being sent out, probably harsher than normal, especially in light of what these stories are, because rape culture is something that really plays on the sympathies of the affluent in this country. The affluent don't like it. And they know that if there is any hint of honesty with what this is being described as, which of course it is, it hurts the Zionist cause even more. And they cannot afford to lose ground with people who control the money supply, which I think more than anything else is their great fear. And if you haven't smashed that like button, guys, please make sure that you do. Again, as you can see, we are being heavily suppressed by the algorithm this evening. So any help you can provide is tremendously appreciated. And then, if nothing else, you make this a lawsuit. You want to make this a lawsuit because somebody decided to actually cover crimes, these crimes against humanity. These crimes against humanity are very real. But I also want to share with you one small little story. I'm not going to say the person's name, but let's just say that I still know of these people in South Florida that are fully on board with the state of Israel. And so I'm going to read you a very small snippet from somebody who I call this person a pick-me person, because they constantly want to get the approval of those in the establishment because they're desperate to be relevant. For much of my life, I have used my voice to advocate for women, for bodily autonomy, for survivors, and for the belief that women deserve safety, dignity, and to be heard. The commitment cannot be conditional. It cannot be depend on politics, identity, religion, or whether acknowledging someone's pain feels complicated in a broader geopolitical conversation. Speaking out against sexual violence against Jewish women anywhere at a time where anti-Semitism is at a rise, with an almost 350% increase in the last 5 years in our country, is not just the right thing to do, but it is the only thing we must all feel called to do. Reading the recent reporting and investigations surrounding these attacks was devastating. Sexual violence should never be minimized, excused, ignored, or treated as acceptable collateral in any conflict. If we cannot speak clearly in condemning rape and violence against women, then we undermine the very principles we claim to stand for. At a time when women's rights and bodily autonomy are being challenged here at home, and violence against women remains alarmingly pervasive worldwide, I believe we have a responsibility to be unequivocal. Rape is abhorrent. Sexual violence is abhorrent. Survivors deserve acknowledgement, humanity, and compassion. Women subjected to sexual violence deserve to be acknowledged, believed, and mourned always. Enough is enough. In my home, we believe all women, always, because we simply can't afford to do less. Well, needless to say, this person in question does not think anything of Palestinian people. In fact, I pay attention to what she posts, and of course, she says nothing. Did she say anything about Kristof's story? Of course not. This story that she's referring to is actually the CBS News op-ed from Barry Weiss's people saying that everything that happened on October 7th is true. Everything else is a lie, but that's true. And she is just one of many people, and she is a very proud shitlib. I mean, very proud. And that's why I've been telling you guys. The real danger here comes from the liberal side of politics. Yes, there is something to be said for decorum politics and how it dominates our daily lives. And this is no different. This is a decorum-focused individual who represents the mindset of a substantial portion of that part of the political spectrum. And that is why they are only telling one side of the story. They will not tell the full story. They can't tell the full story because it doesn't play into the narrative that they're seeking. This is also somebody who wants to be relevant in politics, desperate to be relevant in politics. And that's why they say things like this, completely disregarding reality, completely. And I highlight that story because it's one of many. And that is why we have to do what we do. We cannot stay silent about this, for if we do, we are no better, and it is getting so much worse. So how do we know it's getting worse? Israel just celebrated its 78th birthday, Jerusalem Day, Freedom Day, whatever the hell they want to call it. But I got to say, the behavior of these people is so beyond the scope. And Nakba Day is the real name. That is what the natives understand. The real natives. The people that just moved into town. But the people who truly understand how devastatingly bad it is to be anywhere near them. Did somebody do that? That would be funny. But I will say that if you're looking for kind of like a preempt story, if you will, to fully bring you in to the mindset of these people, pay close attention to this.
Who moved here with her parents from Texas 5 years ago.
And tell me about your two flags.
So this is a flag of the third temple, which we want to build hopefully here on the Temple Mount.
Many people are holding the same flag. The Third Temple movement wants to demolish Al-Aqsa, the third holiest place for Muslims, and build a Jewish temple on the site. We're quickly surrounded by demonstrators.
What are they trying to do?
They want to put stickers.
And what do the stickers say?
Kahana was right.
They idolize Maher Kahana, a far-right American rabbi who moved to Israel and was convicted of multiple acts of terror.
Multiple acts of terror. And we all know that when they say that somebody is convicted of multiple acts of terror, it means really bad shit. Hence the behavior.
What would you do to the Palestinians living here?
Here, like in the old city, leave or place.
She's not lying. Read those words again. And this is on Jerusalem Day, Nakba Day. What would you like to see happen to the Palestinians? Leave or we'll kill you. And yet, there are people in our media that want us to believe that this is not a genocidal ideology that will drag the United States to hell with them if we do not break away. Because our government is conscripted to this very behavior that is costing us hundreds of billions of dollars. And it isn't just what we give to Israel. It's all of the military-industrial complex initiatives that are connected to Israel. Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Kenya, Sudan. It doesn't matter. It's all connected. All for the purpose of satisfying the genocidal blood initiative of these people, like this young, very native to the land type of blonde hair, blue-eyed Ashkenazi girl. Hence the story.
I think Islam is cancer, and you don't transfer cancer to another patient. That's not moral. We have to destroy cancer.
And what does destroy look like for you?
To either kill or re-educate all Muslims.
I've said it before, I will say it again. The last bastion of hope that the Zionist ideology has in the United States, and it's the only card they have left to play, and they're playing it for all it's worth right now. There is a deep-seated hatred for Muslims in this country, as it is over there. And the attitude is basically, well, you have two choices. And that's essentially what they're making it out to be. You have two choices. You can either support the Zio state or you can support Sharia law. Like, that's what they're banking on. They're banking on, we know this decision's probably tough for some of you, but here are your choices. You either get this part or you get that part. And so make a choice. That's basically what they're telling you. Now, I don't agree, because we all know that it is completely fabricated, 1,000%, but it pays to lie. Do I think that this girl is young and naive and doesn't really know any better? Maybe. I'm not going to say that she's not, but she's one of many. Now what you're going to see is just how much worse their deplorable, detestable behavior actually gets when dealing with these so-called celebrations on Jerusalem Nakba Day. If you really want to know what bullies look like, bullies are people that get violent with those that will not fight back, can't fight back, are incapable of fighting back, which is often why you will see these Israeli men hitting women and children and the elderly. They never go after people their own size, and if they did, they always do it under circumstances where they know they can get away with it. The Israelis and those that support this cause understand that the Palestinians that are there do not refer to it as Jerusalem Day. They refer to it as Nakba Day. And that drives them mentally insane. And that's why they want to bring as much hell and terror against them as they can possibly bring. And this, while it is brought to a level of height on such a significant day, this is a regular occurrence. This type of behavior happens every day. The spitting, the shoving, the kicking, the maiming, all of it. This happens all the time. This is nothing new, and it's not ending until we end them. That's how this is going to go. There's more to go. I just want you to sit with that. I want you to sit with that statement. May your village burn. You know what that means? People that say, may your village burn, that's saying it's all about civilians. This is not about Hamas. This is not about whatever propagandized excuse they could come up with for the excuse to behave the way that they've behaved and will behave. Now, this is Zionism being shown for all it's worth, right here, right now.
יש הרתעה כלפי המחבלים בירושלים, ניתן הכי שקט, זה בא בזכות התנאה על הבית.
Well, we needed to show this either way. But yes, Colin, you'll need to pull the music. So whatever needs to be done with that, just keep that in mind. Here's hoping that doesn't happen. But you never know. So I know you guys want me to talk about the dog story, even though I really don't want to talk about it. But I will. I'll tell you what I'll do, just in case it happens. I'm going to show another clip that doesn't have that audio. So here's more from what actually happened. Have you guys noticed that they're just like really freakish people? Like the way they dance, the way they scream, the way they act. This is bizarre beyond words. They're volatile. Like in such a, I've often said that when you're around certain people, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Rick Scott, there is a feeling, an eerie feeling of evil. It's like an evil spirit that's like around you when you're in their presence. Like, I don't want to be around this. And this is a prime example of just that. Whatever this is, stay as far away from it as you can. Now, this brings the whole story full circle when it comes to Mr. Kristof's op-ed in the New York Times. You have all those people that you saw that were outside protesting whether or not this story should have been released. And yet here you have them saying it in their made-up language, death to Arabs, and we will rape your wives. Now, if you ask me, that's pretty bad. That's pretty evil shit. And they're just saying it. But no, they're all lying about it. Kristof, he's a liar. Why would they do this? Why are hundreds of them chanting those very words? There it is. They're telling you what they're going to do. They tell you what they want to do. They want to kill you. They want to rape you, kill you, or kill you and then rape you while you've been killed. Pretty sick shit. But hey, I'm only reporting the facts, people. That's all I'm doing. Pretty heinous. And that is why I don't want anything to do with them. I don't think any of you want anything to do with them, but let's just, for bringing everything full circle, here's the story. Israeli nationalists chant death to Arabs in violent Jerusalem Day March. Far-right Jewish marchers call for Palestinian villages to burn as they storm through Muslim quarter of Old City. Colin. Israeli nationalists chanted death to Arabs, may your villages burn, and Gaza is a graveyard, and we'll rape your wives, in a statement-sponsored march through Jerusalem to mark the anniversary of the city's capture and annexation. The annual assertion of Jewish control over Palestinian East Jerusalem has grown more extreme in recent years. Thursday's events culminated with the National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, unfurling an Israel flag in front of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the holiest Islamic site in the city. Most Palestinians in the Muslim quarter of the old city had shuttered their shops and gone home before the march began, but members of far-right radical Jewish groups who had entered scuffled and with Palestinian residents still there, with both sides throwing chairs at each other until separated by police. Again, the chairs only appeared to be thrown from one direction, I'm just saying. I've come to show all the world that this is our city. This is the Holy Land. God gave us this country and this city, a 19-year-old marcher, Ariel Amachi, said. Yeah, sure. Like Jen likes to say, they don't believe in any God, but they do believe in whatever God they made up believes that they are given Israel. Again, this is why I don't deal with religious fanaticism. I don't deal with religion, period. And I do believe in the possibility of God. But there is separation of church and state, period. And if you don't like it, get the fuck out of this country. And we don't want to deal with these pieces of shit ever again. No one ever, anybody who says that God promised us America, does anyone ever talk like that? Because I've never heard it before. But people talk like that with this shit, and we're attached to the hip with them. I don't want to be, and I don't think any of you do either. Asked what the intended message of the march was to Palestinians in Jerusalem, he replied that they must leave. This is our country, and they can't just be here and try to stab us and kill us. Oh, so he's being fed the propaganda, the Hasbara talking points, even though the killing and the stabbing is all done by them. Amici, who is from Modin, 43 kilometers from Jerusalem, said he believed that Jerusalem Day, marking the capture of the east side of the city in 1967, was the only day when Jews could enter the Muslim quarter through the Damascus Gate, though Israeli Jews and Palestinians use the gate on a daily basis. So again, Hasbara, guys completely fucked in the head. Marchers were bussed in from around Israel and from settlements in the occupied West Bank in a vast operation funded by the Jerusalem municipality and government ministries. The finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, also took part in Thursday's march. Again, the two of them, they are the worst. Look at those incestuous scumbag, soulless bastards. I tell you, it's the Nazi flag. When I see that flag, I see the Third Reich. I see Stalin and Mao. That's what I see. I see the worst of humanity. Full stop. Once Palestinians had left the old city, much of the tension was between government-backed marchers and members of a Jewish group standing together. Oh, I'll have to look into those guys, which has come to protect Palestinian residents from political violence. Suf Pasashi, a Standing Together organizer, said a record 400 volunteers had turned up in high-vis vests that organizations trademark purple on a day fraught with risks. He wanted to really cover each and every corner of the city to make sure that we prevent attacks against Palestinians. Yes, it is dangerous to us, but nothing like the danger to the Palestinian that are living here. Correct. There were a few religious Jews among the protective cordon of counter-protesters. An ultra-Orthodox man with a long gray beard and a gold coat said he had come from northern Israel and gave his name only as David. I've become appalled by the violent behavior of people in my community. I'm a man of faith, religious, and they're doing this in our name, and I felt that I should do something to contrast that. This is a desecration of God's name, so the only way to remedy that is to do the opposite. A Kadosh Hashem, sanctification of God's name. And finally, on the Al-Aqsa compound, known to Jews as the Temple Mount, Ben-Gvir danced with supporters singing "The Temple Mount is in our hands." As he unfurled an Israeli flag, the national security minister has led a campaign to erode the 59-year status quo dating back to the Israeli capture of East Jerusalem and the West Bank, under which non-Muslims are forbidden from praying in the sacred area. Thursday evening, Ben-Gvir wrote on his Telegram social media account, 59 years after the liberation of Jerusalem, I raised the Israeli flag on the Temple Mount, and we can proudly say we have returned governance to the Temple Mount. Let them accelerate their demise as fast as humanly possible. It cannot happen fast enough. This behavior, which as we all know, shall be referred to as Nakba Day, not Liberation or Jerusalem Day, as they call it, but as Nakba Day. And you're seeing exactly why. Can't give them anything. You do? To hell we go. I'm going to take a detour. for just a little while to welcome Candace back to the live stream. We will finish with the dog story because I have to finish with that. I can't get into that now because it'll drain me completely if I do. Now, I want to be very clear. Colin, I need that clip. I need that clip of Ben. Candace Owens continues to take a lot of heat for a lot of the things that she continues to say and do because she has the courage of her convictions. And there are two very important stories going on right now. You see, I think Turning Point USA is in a lot of trouble. And that is why there are now reports which one? Oh, is it Shapiro haters? Is that it? Okay. So it's not his screen. It's Candace, so I wanted to be sure. So both little Ben Shapiro and Erika Kirk really don't like Candace Owens for obvious reasons. Sometimes you go through a low period, you go through a high period, and I want to give credit where credit is due. We're going to go with little Ben first. See, Candace decided to sit down with investigative journalist Elizabeth Lane. And that really pissed off Lil Ben in so many ways. So, why is he so upset? Here's why.
Into politics because I cared about the truth. I care about the America that the founders promised us and the America that our parents and grandparents fought and worked for. And I'm not going to lie for cash. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to tell.
I am totally going to lie for lots of cash, not just a little, but a lot. And I expect to get every damn cent. As long as I have an ideology that is dying day in, day out, I really have to make it my mission as a little whiny bitch that if I don't, how else am I going to get paid? Maybe I could just act more like a fool. Far right, Tucker Carlson, right? Yeah.
Tell you about the wonders of Moscow supermarkets or the glories of Sharia law in Qatar. I'm not going to pander for clicks by pretending that Erika Kirk might have been complicit in Charlie Kirk's murder or that perverse and malicious questions about TPUSA's cover-up are somehow bizarre form of investigative journalism.
Oh, little Ben Shapiro, what can I say? I'll say this. You are losing a lot of money and a lot of power, and you're spiraling out of control. What are you going to do next? I got an idea. Where you live in Boca Raton, there's a lot of golf courses. Maybe you could be a caddy. Carry somebody's clubs around, little Ben, because in the end, you are pint-sized enough to either do that or got one other idea for this tiny little man. There's a lot of horse racing in Florida. Why don't you become a jockey? Maybe you're small enough to actually get up on that high horse of yours and stay there. Maybe you'll win a race or two. Think about it.
Freest and most prosperous country in world history. I'm going to be grateful for America, and I'm going to point out what's great about America and what our principles are. My worldview has not changed. It has not changed. My principles haven't changed because I think those principles are true and good. And those principles are not going to change. So in the end, take it or leave it because facts still don't care about your feelings.
Actually, the problem is that your feelings are always hurt when you're dealt with facts. Now, isn't that right, little Ben Shapiro?
Take offense in me, Paul. You think you're hanging here all day, you're higher than me, you're better than me? Yo, I don't miss you. You're not. I'm a fun. Take offense in me, Paul. You think you're hanging here all day, you're higher than me, you're better than me? Yo, I don't miss you. You're not. I'm a father. I can think that you are not better than me at all. Yeah, I'll teach you.
You know, as as Miss Rachel and Mayor Zoran Mamdani, wah, wah, wah. That's basically what happened, little bit. I don't have her email. I know someone who does have her email, so I guess I could probably do that. But yeah, I don't know what Ben has, but he has a micro brain because his brain is exploding. Now, why is his brain exploding? His brain is exploding, and the reason he's talking like this is because Candace Owens sat down for an interview with investigative journalist Elizabeth Lane, and here's what she had to say about little Ben.
Who are you, dude? Like, he's telling American people, well, you are wrong to want good for America because Israel comes first. He never said exactly these words, but that's where he's going. Like, we support Israel. We should support Israel. Who are you to decide who American people should support? Like, who are you?
It's really operative. And I think that, and you can fact check this, but I was told when I was at the Daily Wire that his uncle is the one that sold all the uranium to Israel, stole all of our uranium. Zalman Shapiro, he ended up not being charged for it because I think he like pled anti-Semitism in court or something, but he did sell all of our uranium. So this is who and what his family is. And this.
If there is any truth to this, if there is any truth that Shapiro's uncle is involved in weapons deals between him and the state of Israel and our State Department, oh boy. See, that's the type of thing that little Ben should have to answer for. That's the type of thing where we say that he should be registered as a foreign agent, that he is an Israel first anti-American piece of shit. This is one of those reasons. When we say that little Ben has blood on his hands, this is why. And yet no one ever questions him because little Ben is, as virtually every Jewish Zionist says in the United States, we are a protected class. You cannot touch us. So when little Ben comes out and says, facts don't care about your feelings, you're right, they don't. My feelings are pretty well documented about you, and they always are backed up with facts. When little Ben feels the need to say, I am all about America. And again, if you feel the need to say that constantly, what that really means is you don't care about America at all. You're projecting. Anybody at this point, and this gets back to something that I haven't even brought up to Jen, and I'll bring it up now. I have a friend, more of an acquaintance, but friend of a friend. And she's a sweet gal, means well, much more so than the other one that I referred to. But this one is exceptionally naive and decided to write me privately about what I post and how it hurts her feelings. I'm not kidding. That's the exact word she used. It hurts our feelings. You don't know what we're going through right now. Oh, I don't. I don't know what you're going through. I don't give a fuck what you're going through. Your ideology is not only committing genocide in Gaza, in the West Bank, now in southern Lebanon. You will do the same thing to the Iranians if you can get away with it. But you are also bringing hell here at home to the American people. And you will have to choose. It is a very clear-cut decision. Either you support Israel or you support America. Which one is it? Make it known. And you should say this to everybody. If you know anybody at this point, if you know anybody that supports Israel, they don't support America. It's that simple. If anybody is looking to bring this country down at this point, it's those that still support them. Because they truly don't give a shit about the facts. They care about their feelings in that right little bit.
Is what he was raised to believe, that he's chosen. And so I think when you are raised with that philosophy of thinking that everything is yours, that you should be allowed to steal and rape and kill and take people's property because you're promised something, chosen by whom? Satan.
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, if you can do this to children and you genuinely believe that you have a separate as the Talmud instructs, that you have a separate spirit. They're animals, you're not. By the way, I wouldn't treat an animal as they treat the Palestinians, just to be clear.
Right.
And actually, when you watch their behavior, the deep irony is they can't think through, no, you have the spirit of animals. Look at you. Look at what you're doing.
What we're doing is destroying our country from within. And as is often the case, throughout any history of empire, whether it's ours, whether it's the British, the Romans, the Ottomans, on and on we go. What are the common themes that these empires typically have? They're always destroyed from within. They're never destroyed from outside. The Third Reich was destroyed from outside, and certain others, but in general, I'm talking about real empire that lasts not 1,000 years, but let's say several hundred years. And what do they all have in common? They get destroyed from the inside, whether through debasement of currency, which is happening now, whether it is foreign influence, also happening now. We are seeing it in real time, the disintegration of our country. Not that we should be an empire, but that our country will sink. And that is where the rubber meets the road. We know that Israel is merely one cog in the equation of the greater empire that is America, but it's a big cog, very big. I know that came out kind of dirty. He's got a big cog, you know what I'm saying? In the case of Israel, when it comes to how demonstrably they control our system, it's a very big problem. And so it is now incumbent upon us to see the entire scope of what's going on. And that is why Candace Owens has been doing a real service for so many of us out there that wish for those with a massive platform to use it for genuine good in the world. We try to do the same here, but they have buried our channel in a corner. And that's why you look at the stream tonight and you see the numbers we're getting, even though these are very key talking points right now, very key discovery points that are being shared. And they know that if they can just basically make us shadow banned, it's easier than just taking us off the air altogether, because that draws more attention than they would like. But Candace has a massive platform, and she is using it for genuine good. Whereas somebody like Little Ben is using it for absolute evil. So credit where credit's due. Candace, once again, owns Little Ben's sorry ass and will continue to do so until the Daily Wire and his genocidal ideology are no more. But she's not done there. You see, it's not just the Daily Wire. It's also Turning Point USA. Now, I don't believe I actually haven't seen this supposed AI video, because that's what I'm being told it is when it comes to Charlie Kirk. So I'm almost dead with my battery on my phone. So I gotta try to get this over to Colin real quick. Let me see. Nope. Okay. So I can't find it. And Colin, if you happen to have that video where apparently Charlie Kirk is saying that Erika Kirk is the one who is going to take over Turning Point USA, and all the yahoos over at TPUSA are saying, see, proof, we told you. And again, even if that was true, it's just a soundbite. Now everybody is saying that it's not an actual soundbite. It's AI generated. I don't know. But Candace is back with more stuff. So here's what she had to say.
That I can answer why it matters. It matters because if it was, in fact, an AI audio and Erika was referring to an AI video clip, which they, in the end, decided not to use, this would tell us exactly who and what Erika Kirk is, okay? It would put to rest any lingering questions that some people may have in the background if we are able to determine that she colluded to create a fake AI voice of her husband, announcing her to take over his company. If she was even emotionally capable of this, a mere weeks after he was horrifically and publicly murdered. If she was capable of then sitting across from Megyn Kelly and spinning a tale about her having seen this video and what it represented to her emotionally, a video which was never recorded because it never occurred, to justify her taking over the company that he built. And if Erika was then able to shamelessly walk out to the sound of a voice of her husband, which she knew was doctored by AI, right? Passing the torch to her. The company is mine at AmFest while she wore glittering pants. I
mean, I'm sorry, but I just have to highlight that image. Turning Point USA, Blake Neff, Andrew Colvett, Erika Kirk, the usual suspects. They would have you believe that Charlie bequeathed his company to Erika Kirk through an audio recording. There is no video that documents it, just audio. The day that Charlie was assassinated was the day that Turning Point was over. What has happened since then is that this has just turned into a massive money grab, and they are going to try to make it last for as long as humanly possible. Because much like Jewish Zionism, this is Christian Zionism for all it's worth. It's one big, disgusting grift. You can think of any megachurch televangelist pastor that's out there who does it for the money, and they work hard for the money, honey. Let me tell you, there is no line they will not cross. And this is just another example of that. The point of doing all of this is to basically break it. That's what you do. Just TPUSA is going to break, and Candace has as much to do with their demise as anybody. Let's not forget, Little Ben and the Daily Wire gave $1 million check to TPUSA the day after Charlie's assassination. And lo and behold, they became, I mean, they were always, in the last several years, as influential amongst the youth in the Christian Zionist movement as you could possibly imagine. But now it became 24/7 as a result of them taking the capital directly from the Israel lobby, because they understood, well, we have a choice. We can slowly watch this thing morph down into something much more regional and small, or we can attempt to keep our empire going by taking all of the Israel lobby money we can get our filthy, dirty, corrupt, possibly murderous hands on. And so they decided, yeah, that was worth it. And that's what Candace is pointing out. She's got more to say.
Pantsuit and had fireworks going on behind her. She knew this was all AI, and they planned this moment to make people feel emotional. Then we would have our answer. Erika would be a confirmed, ruthless psychopath. Okay, you know that psychopath brandishing a weapon that Blake's concerned about? That would be Erika. Erika would be the kind of person that if you see on a subway, you should move, if you're capable of that, because that would mean she was void of any and all human emotion. Capable of, I am being clear, I am not being dramatic. If this turns out to be real, I would assert that she is capable of real harm. She is dangerous. And I would extend that to every person around her who approved that monstrous plan. So that would be Blake Neff, Andrew Colvett. We would be looking at a psychological profile of people that I would suggest are very much capable of cold-blooded murder.
People kill for a lot less money, a lot less power. In the case of Turning Point USA, you're talking real financial power, real political power. And they had it in spades. But their Trojan horse was Charlie Kirk. They can't sell their ideology without Charlie. They've tried, but they failed. It is a shell of what it was. And now Christian Zionism much like Jewish Zionism, has a really big problem in this country, because Turning Point USA was a massive vehicle for that ideology when Charlie was alive. But then Charlie got his mind right, the right way. He saw what was going on, and his libertarian principles reflected in his extremely genuine, warm, and well-received political friendship with Congressman Thomas Massie. He was not a warmonger. He said effed up things. There's no two ways about it that he did. And in many ways, I think he danced on the string for the money. But when it came to war, especially war with Iran, Charlie was very clear where he stood. And the powers that be made it very clear that they did not agree with where he stood. And every single detail that followed, that was uncovered after September 10th of last year, has become more and more obvious that he had a talking to. And the talk was very simple. Do as we say, or you're finished. And he decided to take a chance and say, may it be, so be it if that's the case. And he took that chance, and he obviously it cost him his life. And we still ended up with war in Iran. And now, these guys are trying to cover their tracks, and they're doing a really shitty job of it. Absolutely, Zoe. That's where everything comes together. Guys, if you haven't smashed that like button or shared the stream as of yet, or if you haven't subscribed, or maybe you did, thought you were subscribed, got to check again, make sure that you still are. We really appreciate it if you do. Final thoughts from Candace.
Okay, in my opinion, this is my opinion, I am asserting that if you have the ability to do that, that's not just like, oh, husband died.
And I agree. I don't think there's anybody out there that can look at the relationship between Charlie and Erika and think that it was one that was genuinely about love. There was a huge business component in this relationship, which is why so many people believe that Erika is part of intelligence, which again, it wouldn't surprise me if she is. It certainly appears that her parents are, especially her mother. And when you have the ability to be part of the true power structure of the highest levels of our government, there's a lot that people will do to get there, and especially what they'll do to stay there. And in this case, it looks like they're going to great lengths in order to do it. But as Candace has done so admirably for so long, she brings the receipts and she proves just how corrupt, dishonest, and downright treacherous those that support the genocidal state of Israel truly are. May it only be a matter of time before they no longer hold any of that power. Final story that I'm going to cover this evening is one that I am not going to show the image from. I'm going to show you a short clip of what's going on the domestic side. Obviously, we have seen tonight what has happened in response to Nakba Day in Israel. I have not shown you what type of volatile behavior has been going on, once again, in New York. But here they are on Nakba Day.
Don't fucking touch me!
I didn't do anything. He didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing. Why would he say such a thing? I'm a protected class, because I'm native and I can do whatever I want. You got him. Let's see if he winds up.
Touch me.
There it is. Now, I pride myself on having great personal hygiene. I'm just thinking out loud. I could be wrong. But I don't think you want to get a whiff of that guy's breath, because I think it would smell like, well, sewer problems. Just a thought. Just a thought.
Hey, fuck Palestine!
Where's Nasrallah? Where's Gaza? Come on, Gaza! Yallah! 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 Okay, but we don't.
This is the thing also about animals. They're very tough when they're in packs, but when they're alone, individuals, they're very weak, very scared, very meek. But when they're in packs, they're dangerous, and that's why they're acting this way. Complete impunity, because they've got the cops on their side, not the other way around. And all the while, as I've said, as I said earlier, it's like Ronald Reagan said, we can't help everybody, but everybody can help somebody. And what we can do is collectively work together to end this genocidal attachment to this rogue state. And with it, our collapsing empire. Because there are people at the very top who don't care what happens to us. So we should not care what happens to them. That's our job. Our job is to expose these crimes against humanity. That's our job.
You know, fuck Palestine, fuck you. Fuck you for supporting
I also want to point out one more thing, which I think anybody would understand about these kids in particular. They clearly have never been punched in the mouth in a way that would make them cry like the little bitches that they are. Sometimes you do need to feel what it's like to take one on the chin. I can tell you that I've taken it on the chin a few times in my life. Quite a few. I once took it on the jaw from an Army lieutenant that was drunk out of his mind. He's a friend of mine. But at the time, I was trying to separate him from physical altercation with a fellow soldier that I know that if I did not get in the middle of, one of them probably would have been dead. That's how serious this was. And he reared back and he gave me one, and this is a big guy. And he gave me one, took it right there on the jaw. And he was shocked that I barely moved. And I thought about it, and I'm like, well, I could fight him, but this won't end well either. Because these guys truly know how to, these are killers. These guys are trained killers. That's what happens when you have to fight somebody who really knows what they're doing. These guys are just a bunch of salty little pussies who wouldn't know anything about actual physical altercation if their life depended on it. And that's why they act the way that they do when they're surrounded by hundreds of them all doing the same thing with the cops on their side, mind you. And they're doing this against people that are just peacefully protesting. They're even going after their own. They're going after the rabbis and the people who are on the Palestinian side, saying, "You're not Jews, you freaking terrible." Bleh. I am sick and tired of looking at this shit, as I'm sure all of you are. But this is another example of why, if you saw the interview, and I'm not going to play it, but Trump sat down with Hannity over in China. And when he was asked, what was the point of starting war with Iran? He's like, well, we totally have to protect. Well, it was for Israel. And then he stopped himself and he thought, oh, wait, no, I can't just say that. I have to, there's a little bit more to the story, basically adding in, well, it's also for these other countries too. But he led with Israel because, of course, he did. Because, again, he's the most honest liar we've ever seen. So that's one of the really big reasons why this has become such a main focal point in so much of what we do here and now. And when I think about the story that I read about the dog that was defending a family, and then an Israeli soldier beat the dog within an inch of its life, which, thank God, the dog apparently is going to recover. But I'll tell you, to see that soldier hit that dog and hear that dog cry, and then he hit it again and again and again. I have said before that part of the reason that I know that I am capable of doing this, being in this arena, even though I really don't want to be, is because I have the courage of my convictions to stand up to people like this. And if necessary, deal in combat with people like this. You can't be afraid to die if you want to live. If anybody thinks that the torture of animals, especially dogs, is in any way acceptable, I have no words to express how I feel about dogs. It's one of the few things in life that truly gives me joy. Jen likes to give me shit every time I wave at a dog. People think I'm creeping them out because I'm waving at their dog, but I do it because I genuinely love them. And they make life better. And as Bill Murray once said, I don't trust any person who doesn't like dogs, but I trust any dog who doesn't like a person. And again, most of you know, I'm not going to show this because I can't. It's too much. And so maybe seeing the violence, the maiming, the raping, all that behavior that's inhumane, that is genocidal in nature, the Zionist supremacy is one that most people tend to overlook because, as I mentioned before, there is an anti-Muslim sentiment in this country that is very real and very strong. And so as a result, one tends to overlook these problems because they're just indifferent about it. But if the average person saw the physical abuse of a dog by these animals, these subhuman animals, I think a lot of them would have a big problem with it. I think they would. And so as difficult as it is for me to say, those that truly need to see this need to understand that there is no exception. This isn't a one-off situation. We have shown before that there is, Jen, if you can remind me the name of the day, there is a holiday. There is a fucking holiday in Israel devoted to tossing dogs and cats into fire. That's real. It is so sadistic that the few Israelis that have humanity still running through their blood do everything they can to protect these cats and dogs on those days. And this is something where it's primarily youth, because, why not get them started early, like the Hitler Youth? That's the day. So when you hear a story about a Zioscum soldier physically decimating a dog because that dog was trying to protect its family, you know that there is no saving those people. And that whatever happens to them, once this country no longer is conscripted to their ideology, if they become a dustbin of history, so be it. Not a tear will be shed by those who have real humanity. I am choosing my words extremely carefully here because I also have to think about my future and some of the things that I may want to do down the road. That is true. In fact, psychopaths, one of the first things that they tend to do is abuse animals or kill animals to see how it feels. And then they move up to humans. To say that they are inhuman, to say that they do not deserve anything on this earth anymore would be an understatement. They don't. And let's just say that the dog will never be the same after going through that. But may there be swift and brutal justice for the soldier who did it, for everyone that we have shown this evening, and a friendly reminder that the reason we do what we do, in spite of the fact that it costs us dearly with the algorithm, with our ability to make money, anything, because it is the right thing to do. Because unless we deal with this, we have no country, we have no future. It's over. We will go to hell with them. I don't want to. I want to be done. I want to be done with Israel forever. And may it happen sooner rather than later. We want to thank you all for being here this evening. If you would be so inclined, go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite heavy suppression. We didn't even get to 600 live viewers tonight. We know we're getting stuck in the corner, so any and all support that you guys can provide is tremendously appreciated. Shout out to Citizen Pendejo with the 50 pesos. Fuentes made 3 mistakes, each irrecoverable by itself. Somehow he survived siding with Israel after 9/10, but crossing Bulgarian was his point of no return. I would definitely agree, and I will get into that more as we get closer to the primary. Remember, the election is not until the end of August, so there's a lot of things that is going to happen over the course of the summer. But in the case of, little Nick, theater boy Nick, once you see the scam, you can't unsee it. There's too many people that get caught up with personalities and they stick with it. But Nick Fuentes, that guy. Not really. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. Again, Epstein Media polling is crap. Fox Entertainment included. Well, I'm not going to say I disagree with that one either. You're definitely onto something. To Godfrey. What the Trying anyway. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. Again, separation of synagogue and state. Fatality. Well, I'm here all week. I try. Libertarian Social Dem with the 199 on Tuesday. The Massie era begins for America. Hey, listen, let me tell you, he wins on Tuesday. There is going to be an endless line of individuals signing up to start a Massie for whatever state. Massie for Iowa, Massie for New Hampshire, Massie for South Carolina, and on we go. I don't think Massie will have any choice but to run in 28 if he wins. We'll see. Aaron Wolf with the $10. Thank you, Peter, for being a good dude. Happy to do it, my friend. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here. You appreciate good content? We really appreciate you being here and supporting our channel. Jim Talib with the $5. Always great to see you, my friend. H299 with the $4.99. Thank you so very, very much for your support as always. Lake Vacuum, thank you for the $19.99. That is a tremendous, tremendous contribution, and we really appreciate it. An average Canadian with the 5 Canadian A. Love the info. Appreciate you being here, my friend. It's been an interesting time traveling around California, and as I head to Vegas for my event, I will say this. There's a lot to like about Cali. There's a lot not to like about Cali. Find it a place to visit. It's actually not bad. The food here is great. You know, the one thing about California, I could say, especially SoCal, always had great food experience. What can you say about the Mexican food? It's amazing. I'd like to get to Mexico for real one of these days. And of course, if you guys also are here, I also want to make sure that everyone knows that we also have a Substack. Make sure that if you can, go over to substack.com at Revolutionary Change and check out the writing that I just put up earlier this afternoon. I'm on a 3-week streak so far. I've done one story a week, and I'm going to stick to it. So we'll keep them rolling out. Of course, if you haven't subscribed on Rumble, we are Revolutionary Change on Rumble. So make sure that you check us out over there as well. On Monday, I'm not entirely sure yet what we're going to cover, but we know what we'll be covering on Thursday after the elections are over. I really appreciate that, Cloakman, and I will say that Ronald Reagan was obviously Irish, and obviously there were a lot of things that he did that we vehemently disagree with, some things we did agree with. He actually was somebody who stood up to Israel in the early 80s, and they never really had a foothold the way that they wanted to during his administration. That all changed with the Bushes and Clintons. But again, I walk away from Reagan's library with a quote that I think we could all agree with. It's a very powerful quote. He said, we can't help everybody. I want to get this right. We can't help everybody, but everybody can help somebody. And if we take that mindset, that everybody is capable of helping somebody, that's how the world gets better. Hey, the Gipper had quite a few quotes. He also has a very nice library. Just want to thank you all, especially those that are always here, that always support our channel, that always did and have always done right by us, knowing full well what we go up against on a regular basis, because it does come with a great deal of risk. A lot of these other channels, they cover a multitude of different things, and we do too. But the central focus of our channel, you know what it is. And as I said, I wouldn't have it any other way, because it's what's right. So smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. We appreciate you all. And we will see you Monday at Free Palestine. Good night, guys.